It is now 4:30. It is still the same day it was when we started, which is the September 10th, 2024. We are the Carmel-by-the-Sea Council. Could we get a roll call, please? Nova.
Yep. Councilmember Barron?
Here.
Councilmember Dramoff? Here. Councilmember Ferlito?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards?
Here.
Mayor Potter?
Here.
All are present.
Do you want to do it? Okay.
Yes, certainly. Yes, the mayor, I'll be glad to speak to the fact that Bobby Richards has made a request to attend this meeting remotely due to health issues. Mayor Pro Tem Richards, did you want to identify?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, City Attorney Perrick. So earlier this year, I found out that I had some cancer. And so a couple weeks ago, I had it removed, and we're hopeful that everything is gone and I'll be back in action. But for right now, it's best that I take this meeting via Zoom. But thank you.
Great, thank you. And so the motion would be to approve Mayor Pro Tem Richards attending telephonically.
All right, so moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? No, could I get a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilmember Barron?
Yes.
Councilmember Dramoff?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Potter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right.
Then there's more. I need under the code to check with Mayor Pro Tem Richards and just ask this question: whether there is anyone 18 years or older that is present in the room.
No, I'm alone.
Okay. And then the final thing I would say is that all votes must be right by roll call. There cannot be any voice votes.
Very good. Already that noted. Jeff, would you lead us in the roll with the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well done. Okay, so Bobby, I think you were going to read Jacob Hart's resolution proclamation.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So it wasn't by chance that I read this today. Sort of close to the heart right now. Okay, whereas the character of our community is revealed in how we treat our most vulnerable, and whereas each year, 19.2 in every 100,000 children in our community will be diagnosed with cancer. And whereas cancer remains the leading cause of death by disease among children, more than asthma, diabetes, cystic fibrosis, congenital anomalies, and AIDS combined. And whereas Jacob's Heart has been keeping medically fragile children and families housed, fed, and emotionally supported by steadfastly adhering to the following commitments. Parents of children with cancer and other serious illness will be relieved of financial fears and able to focus attention on their children. And whereas no child undergoing intensive treatment in our community will be homeless, and families of seriously ill children will not experience food insecurity during and after the pandemic, and no child seriously ill in our community will ever miss a medical appointment because of a lack of transportation. And whereas Jacob's Heart holds the memories and honors legacies of hundreds of children from our local community who have been lost to cancer, ensuring that their memories will never be forgotten. And whereas the oncology department at Lucille Packard's Children's Hospital at Stanford has worked closely with Jacob's Heart for the past 25 years as a trusted community partner in providing family-centered care that addresses the emotional, practical, and financial struggles of families of children with cancer in the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea. And whereas it is important for all Carmel-by-the-Sea residents to recognize the impact of pediatric cancer on families within our community and honor the children in our community whose lives have been cut short by cancer. Now therefore, I, Bobby Richards, on behalf of Dave Potter, Mayor of the City of Carmel, hereby declares September 2024 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in our city, and honor Jacob's Heart's Children's Cancer Support Services for their outstanding support to our community and their contributions to raising awareness of childhood cancer. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. I appreciate it. Is Yasmin Garcia here to receive the presentation?
I'm Kimberly. She wasn't able to come, so I'm going to represent the state.
So here's the.
And I Hello, my name is Kimberly, and I'm here on behalf of Jacob's Heart Children's Cancer Support Services. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for proclaiming September as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. We really, it's very deep in our hearts, and we really appreciate that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And then Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month proclamation. Alessandra.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas ovarian cancer is the 5th leading cause of cancer deaths of women in the United States and causes more deaths than any other gynecological cancer, whereas in the United States, a woman's lifetime risk of being diagnosed with ovarian cancer is about 1 in 78, and whereas all women are at risk for ovarian cancer, but approximately 20% of women who are diagnosed with ovarian cancer have a hereditary predisposition to ovarian cancer, which places them at even higher risk. And whereas the lack of an early detection test for ovarian cancer combined with its vague symptoms mean that approximately 80% of cases of ovarian cancer are detected at an advanced stage. And whereas improved awareness of the symptoms of ovarian cancer by the public and healthcare providers can lead to quicker diagnosis, and whereas ongoing investments in ovarian cancer research and education and awareness efforts are critical to closing these gaps and improving survivorship for women with ovarian cancer. Therefore, on behalf of Dave Potter, Mayor of Carmel-by-the-Sea, I do hereby proclaim September 2024 as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in the city of Carmel-by-the-Sea to increase public awareness of ovarian cancer.
Thank you, Alessandra. Well done.
Thank you.
Is Jenny Hart here? Jenny?
Thank you so much, Mayor Potter and the council, for recognizing Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. I do have a few statements, if that's okay, to go ahead and make. And I have some information that I just wanted to pass out. For anybody that's also here that would like any, I have some that you can take home.
Thank you.
As someone who's been affected by ovarian cancer and an Ovarian Cancer Research Alliance advocate leader for California, I reached out to mayors along our Central Coast to request support for California's ovarian cancer community, asking for proclamations formally designating September as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. We were fortunate to have gained support from 10 of our communities, as well as my hometown in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and able to do some events to do some education and awareness. My mom's last visit from her hometown in Arkansas to see my family in California was during the spring of 2017. I was unaware my mom had complained of abdominal pain and bloating for 6 to 9 months, and that her doctor had initially brushed it off as a harmless temporary gastrointestinal discomfort. I'm not sure at what point my mother finally received a scan that indicated it was something to be taken more seriously. But I do recall the conference call with my mom and my brothers, the first of many, in which we reviewed a blank advance directive, attempting to explain to my mom the decisions she needed to make in preparation for her now urgent surgery to remove what had been identified as ovarian cancer. At the time, we had no knowledge what our level of responsibility would be, that later she would be residing in an apartment in Houston, 8 hours from her hometown of the last 25 years, for a lengthy duration of her treatment. We did not know her cancer would return 2 more times, or that the rest of her life would be spent fighting. We did not know COVID would be coming. We did not know how to research the clinical options despite the numerous caregivers in our immediate family. We did not know how it would impact us as siblings, our own families, or our careers. And we did not know when hospice was proposed that meant death was approaching or that my mom was suffering. We simply supported our mother's fight and believed she would recover. I never heard her complain about the days she had to face treatment alone or the physical pain. I lost my mom in June of 2021, 5 days after she celebrated her 76th birthday and 2 reoccurrences. The OCR has lost 4 of its 125 advocates just in the last few months. I'm sharing my story because it's therapeutic to me, a meaningful connection to the community, and my volunteer work through Surfing for Hope and the OCRA has only made me more aware that my mom, our family, and her physicians are not isolated cases in which a greater awareness of symptoms and risk factors, early detection testing, clinical understanding of treatment options, and family support are all needed. Most importantly, education and awareness regarding ovarian cancer are especially paramount because symptoms are often vague or altogether absent. There's no early detection test for the disease, which makes diagnosis particularly difficult. Once someone is diagnosed, treatment options are often limited and the cancer progresses quickly. Only 50% of women diagnosed with ovarian cancer live 5 years beyond their diagnosis, and their survival rate is directly linked to the cancer stage when it's diagnosed. The number one cause of gynecological cancers, yet there's been limited change in mortality rates in decades. Please educate the women in your life to be aware of the following symptoms: abdominal or pelvic pain, bloating, difficulty eating, and urinary frequency that are not the norm or have not resolved in 2 weeks. And keep in mind such things as BRCA positive results, increased age of 55 plus, postmenopause and family history of breast, uterine, colorectal, or ovarian cancer, increasing the risk. The OCRA is offering free genetic testing through Color Health, regardless of income, which I would suggest for any female. In the meantime, encourage women to be confident in advocating for themselves or assist them in doing so. And for those women that already have children or beyond childbearing age, consider discussing an opportunistic salpinectomy. Research shows that some forms of ovarian cancer begin in the fallopian tubes, and they're now encouraging women, if they've already had children, to have their fallopian tubes removed. The best that I can do to honor my mom is to continue fighting for her by pushing for better policies, more funding, and awareness. I consider it a privilege to give my time in hopes of improving outcomes for patients, families, and caregivers in the future in memory of my mother. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for that very compelling testimony. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Right now I'll ask, is there a Carmel High School student present for today's report out? Not seeing anybody. Okay, we'll pass on that then. We'll move on then to public appearance items. An opportunity for any member of the public to testify on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. 3-minute limitation on the testimony. State your name for the record. I'd appreciate it.
Good evening. Nancy Toomey from the Carmel Residents Association. I just wanted to extend an invitation to everybody to participate in the Candidates Forum next Tuesday. Doors open at 5 and the program begins at 5:30. And thanks to all the candidates who are going to be a part of this event, and look forward to seeing everyone there. I wanted to also offer a PS that it will be recorded but not broadcast live. So the recording from the event will be up on our website the next day. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there anybody else wishing to testify?
Andy Carr. I would just like to say that I know that there are topics on the agenda that have brought contention and some rudeness to the meetings, and I would like to say that we're all adults and we're all entitled to our point of view, and that people need to remember that as they come to speak and as they listen to other people speak. Everyone deserves respect.
Thank you, Andy. Anybody else wishing to speak tonight?
Hi, council members. My name is Brittany Schloss, and I'm here tonight to make a public comment in regards to the City of Carmel placing the Mills Act program on hold. I'm a permit facilitator, so clients hire me to take on the stress of acquiring planning and building permits, and to navigate the labyrinth that it has kind of become these days. I do have some clients that recently purchased the old C.J. Ryland cottage located on Scenic. This cottage was the first home built on Scenic in 1934, and it has already been listed as a historical resource of Monterey County. With your permission, I did print out pictures for everyone so you can see the pictures from the 1934. Can I? There's 7 sets there. In these pictures, you will see the cottage in 1934, as well as the state of the window seals in the home. At its present state, the windows are broken and not functional. The chimney needs repairs and the roof leaks. The historical integrity of this home is the utmost important importance to my clients, but they need to make these repairs in a timely manner. To do so, they would need to apply for the Mills Act first, go through that process, and then apply with the Planning and Building Department to make those repairs. So I'm here today to ask for consideration from each council member to put the Mills Act program examination back onto the agenda and have a discussion to decide if amending the program is happening or not, so that homeowners like my clients can move forward with the repairs for their beautiful new forever and full-time home. I'd also like to add these homeowners are small mom and pop. They love City of Carmel. They decided to sell their home in the preserve. They are locals here to Monterey County. They wanted to live closer to the beach and be closer to City of Carmel and the commerce, the shopping, the restaurants. They love the vibe, as you would say, down here. And they would like to make this their forever home. But to do so, they need to make these repairs to make it livable. And in order to make the repairs, they need to apply for the Mills Act program with the state and the assessors first. So yeah, I would ask for your consideration on putting this topic back on the agenda for discussion maybe next time.
Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker. Is anybody else in the room wishing to speak?
Chuck Najarian, Carmel resident. I wanted to talk a little bit about the California Environmental Quality Act again, and I want to do this because I think you're making a mockery of it. You're misinforming the public, and you're making decisions without understanding the ramifications, the environmental and public health implications. On July 9th, after approving the street address resolution without any CEQA review, you rejected the Hoff's House CEQA appeal. That appeal demonstrated the potential for adverse impact from demolition and construction activities. In rejecting the appeal, you inappropriately concluded there were no unusual circumstances leading to a reasonable possibility the project will have a significant effect on the environment. You ignored the neighborhoods of single-family homes surrounding the site, an elementary school less than a quarter mile away, toxic substances in the circa 1940s structure, the traffic on our narrow streets from large vehicles and demolition and construction work, the lack of parking for workers, the noise and pollution from demolition and construction activities, the 4th Street watershed, the substantial slope of that site, and the Carmel Bay National Marine Sanctuary. In rejecting the appeal, you also refused to assess the combined effects of demolition and construction of the Hoff's House with construction of the pit, the J.B. Pasteur building, and foreseeably the Svensgaard Inn, together with construction of 349 housing units identified in the recently adopted housing element. Tomorrow night, the Planning Commission will be considering yet another significant construction project, the Scenic Drive sewer line replacement. CEQA requires the cumulative impacts of successive projects of the same type in the same place over time must be analyzed and potential adverse impacts mitigated. High-priced attorneys came into this town and claimed there weren't any unusual circumstances and claimed cumulative impacts of constructing all these projects would only apply if they were literally on the Hoff's House property. Staff said the same thing, but that's ridiculous and completely erroneous. We have the pit, the J.B. Pasteur building, and the Hoff's House only a few blocks away from each other. You've authorized 349 housing units crammed in all over the town. This situation is a poster child for, quote, successive projects in the same place, of the same type, over time. Yet most of you, including Jeff Barron's, claimed staff didn't do anything wrong without understanding the issue. I also want to point out something I recently reminded of on the initial study checklist, which is done by the lead agency under CEQA to determine if a negative declaration is appropriate or an environmental impact report. And one question, they ask a series of questions. And one question they ask is, does the project have impacts that are individually limited but cumulatively considerable? And it goes on to say, cumulatively considerable means that the incremental effects of a project are considered considerable when viewed in conjunction with the effects of past projects, the effects of other current projects, and the effects of probable future projects.
Sir, if you'd summarize, I'd appreciate it. Your time is up.
I just want to, last thing I want to say is I think you're creating a CEQA-free construction zone in 1 square mile. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anybody else wishing to testify tonight?
Good afternoon, council and staff. Joe Todd, resident. I'm directing this to Council Member Dramov, that I wish you would put the Saturday Farmers Market topic, put it back on, because you took it off the agenda and it has not been on since then, a few months ago. And I think we need to have it on so at least you can start a discussion. And I'm again suggesting that the departments of the city should be seen at the farmers market. We have all these tables, and most of them are for food, but then we have some of the tables that are being used over and over by the same people that are not farmers. And I'm very interested in having, we did have this in the past, but it has not been recently, that we have all the departments in the city at least have a table so they can be introduced to all of us. And again, one sad note, that I passed by the Church of the Wayfarer, and then going past the restaurant that is no longer. It was very sad to walk past that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight? Last call in the room here. Mike, if you're going to speak, let's go.
Bringing a chair for him.
Members of Council, this is a presentation to you on the Flanders Mansion. There's a group in town, as you probably well know, trying to help and work with the city, try and solve problems, probably about 50, 60 years old and still standing. This mansion is on the National Historic list, and it's sitting empty, and we are trying to help the city come up with solutions. You're going to watch a film, and appreciate if the lights would be put down during the film so everybody can see it clearly, and members of the audience can snuggle if they'd like when the lights are down.
One disclaimer is that the Flanders Mansion Restoration Committee that Ken and I are representing today, there's 9 of us, and this is a consolidation of, instead of all of us coming up and taking a lot of time, this is only 5 minutes long, and our committee is not associated with the city at all, and the organization that we're creating, called the Carmel Outlands, is something that we're building, and this is all based on faith. Thank you.
Welcome to the Flanders Mansion, an iconic property in the center of Carmel-by-the-Sea, which has long sat unoccupied. Today we present a vision for its future, crafted by a group of people devoted to finding a singular solution which will bring public benefit to the people of our village for generations to come.
Our goal? To restore, maintain, and operate Flanders Mansion as a public benefit organization called Carmel Outlands, named after the historic name of the property, the Outlands in the 80 acres.
Flanders Mansion, completed in 1924 to 1925, exactly 100 years ago, has been well cared for by the city and is in great shape because it's constructed of prefabricated steel-reinforced concrete blocks and is said to be able to sit in perpetual stillness forever. In fact, to most of us, it feels like it has. Despite numerous proposals, all previous attempts have failed, primarily because they wanted the home to be private or commercially driven.
I too approached this home with the same intent in 2018. But after so many years on this project, working with my 3rd group of concerned citizens, I've learned that the only solution is one that makes this home available to everyone. This is what the home's destiny is, and this is why the city bought it in 1972. This is why the public wouldn't allow the city to sell it. Our approach is different than every other proposal that has come before it. It prioritizes a public benefit, offering access and enrichment to all.
Our committee has formed a nonprofit board of directors and agreed on a mission. We have a name, bylaws, programs, and a sound fundraising strategy. We are putting together not just one person, but a group of people ready to serve as the curator, fulfilling the city's desire for a responsible and dedicated caretaker of this historic property.
The mission is to provide public access to the environs of the Flanders Mansion in harmony with the residential neighborhood for the benefit of the people of Carmel-by-the-Sea. Over the past year, our committee met 14 times to refine our approach and engage with neighbors to address their concerns and incorporate their feedback. Our master plan reflects this community input, ensuring that our proposed function of the property will live up to our mission to be in harmony with the residential neighborhood.
It will take up to $2 million to replace this home's basic systems and make it available for the public. The funds will enable us to transform Flanders Mansion into a cultural hub that blends exclusive in-person events with unlimited online attendance. This online live stream model respects the limited parking and neighborhood concerns while amplifying Carmel's culture globally. Our productions, inspired by Carmel, will carry the city's name, and people, past and present, onto the world stage, enriching our community's narrative.
If you're interested in having a creative role in the restoration, maintenance, or public benefit programs we've outlined, we want to hear from you. We encourage you and any potential caregivers who have ever attempted to restore the Flanders Mansion to come forward and serve on our current committee and future committees. We are seeking the village's most enthusiastic, creative minds to help us develop our programs at the Carmel Outlands, and our most connected Carmelites who can help us reach our fundraising goal under our strict timeline. Simply answer a few questions on our website and we will contact you right away.
Apply now to join our committee. Sign up for updates or read our master plan at carmeloutlands.org.
All righty, I assume that's the end of it. Is that it? Okay, thank you. Appreciate the testimony. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight?
Couple hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, what do we got?
Brian, go ahead.
Brian Rosen.
Hi, council members. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, we can, Brian.
Wonderful. I just want to tell you what's happening. It's very tragic regarding the surf project. At the very last minute, all these powerful politicians met with the Coastal Commission and used their influence over commissioners and staff members to get them to change their longstanding opposition to the surf busway. And now they've reached a compromise that the surf busway will be laid right over the railroad tracks, but it's still going to use up a huge amount of Isha habitat. I spoke with Braylon Ammon, the coastal planner who wrote the report. 16 acres of Isha habitat will be lost. He's used the word substantial. And this has just suddenly happened at the last minute without input from the other side and secret meetings, and this is very, very wrong. And it's going to preclude the train, because after they spend that much money and buy their expensive electric buses, there's not going to be the political will to do a train. And they're kicking it down the can for 30 years, bringing back rail. They say it's a long-term thing. Henry Mello would do it every year, introduce legislation to bring back rail to the Monterey Peninsula, and he didn't think it would take 30 years. Even TAMSI, if you look at memorandums from early 2000s, that it was like 7 to 10. But now we have a Tampsian and Monterey Salinas Transit have sold the rail out, and the board members are politicians, including Mr. Potter and Mr. Barron, who have rubber stamped this project and sold the rail down the drain. And this is just wrong, and we need anybody who's opposed to it to contact the Coastal Commission during their Zoom meeting, because a lot of people think it was a dead deal, and they don't recognize that the Coastal Commission made this sudden change at the last minute, and it's not fair. And we really need to preserve the rail. We've got a 6-lane highway out there which is made for a carpool lane, made for alternatives. And Braylon Ammon and the Coastal Commission in his report said these are reasonable alternatives. Suddenly they're not feasible. You have this wide highway where all the other parts of Highway 1 are 4 lanes. And so this is just plain wrong. It's going to be, imagine, Mr. Potter, how could you do this? You worked so hard for the rail, I thought. And buses will be whizzing by at 55 miles an hour every 15 minutes in each direction. That's 7.5 minutes on each section of the highway, running over endangered species. Even a rail shouldn't be that often. Even a rail shouldn't go that fast. And it's going to be very devastating to the habitat. And it's just plain wrong that you're on TAMSI. You need to make sure your representatives on TAMSI are doing the right thing and not going wild after developer money, because they can't get their development unless if they have the transit line. It makes it a lot easier to get the permits.
Thank you, Brian. Brian, your time is up. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, a number ending in 082, I think we have on the phone. 082.
Yes, good afternoon, Lorna Moffett here. First of all, I've noticed that you're considered rude if you criticize any of the board members, whether it's City Council or TAMSI or whatever. And I was accused of that last TAMSI meeting because I had to criticize Mr. Muck, who has been instrumental in taking away our train for the surf project. But he is just beholden to all of you, Mr. Potter, and all of you supervisors, and Senator Laird and Panetta, who are very pro-development in our area. So I would just like to say that the surf busway that paves over the tracks, how is that going to help global warming? And how is that going to help keep our most important sanctuary in the world from further warming and acidification? The surf busway will only transport local people, and certainly is no incentive for people driving cars that need to get somewhere in a hurry, and everyone is in a hurry these days. Laying asphalt for 5 miles not only creates toxic emissions during its life cycle, but it also heats up our area, because asphalt has reached temperatures up to 140 degrees in heat. Acidification of our bay due to the CO2 emissions is a real problem, especially since phytoplankton blooms are prolific here at certain times of the year and feed all the marine wildlife. Their shells are thinning due to acidification from our cars and pollution, and thus the world's food chain is threatened, as well as our own oxygen supply, since phytoplanktons create 70% of the world's oxygen. And then there's the recent discovery that car pollution is a significant cause of Alzheimer's and dementia in children and adult brains. And you all are not helping the problem by taking away the very answer to solving our traffic nightmare, the train. So you all had 4 years to obtain Biden transportation grants to bring back the train, but you chose to squander our Measure X money on the surf. And you really need to start working on the train, cancel this terrible surf project, and get going with what really can bring all those thousands of people down from San Francisco and Santa Cruz and San Jose to our area, because you are in part the cause of why we have this traffic problem. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lorna. Appreciate your testimony. Is there anybody else wishing to speak tonight? I don't see anybody in Zoom. Do you, Manora?
There's no hands raised.
Is there anybody else in the room wishing to speak tonight? I'm going to close the public comment period, then bring it back to the council. We've got city attorney reports.
Yeah, I will report that there is no reportable action from our closed session yesterday.
That's appreciated. City Administrator Chipper.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got 3 announcements. Number 1 is that you may have noticed when you came to City Hall, we're re-roofing City Hall. Unfortunately, the roofers have to load the roof this coming Friday, the 13th, with asphalt shingles that are going back, and we can't be in the building because they'll be delivered by crane. So we will, so it's an OSHA standard, but I also wouldn't want our staff in the building when it goes a crane over. It's an 80-foot crane. So we will have a remote location at Harrison Memorial Library for people to come in, pay their building permit fees. We'll have a permit technician there. We'll have staff there. We'll have planners there. Some staff will be working remotely, but we will have all those staff members again available at HML, and we'll get some more information out about that, put it on the doors. Number 2 is an announcement that the ad hoc committee on Rule 20A undergrounding will have a meeting on Monday the 16th, and those members are Council Members Dramoff and Council Member Barron. Monday the 16th at 2:30 p.m. in this room. Several of us visited the impacted properties. Today there are 6 properties on Ocean Avenue in Del Mar, and we will have a notice posted and mailed, and we will have a notice hopefully in the Pine Cone this week to announce that meeting. And again, it is a public meeting to give a brief presentation on the Rule 28 undergrounding and to receive public comment in anticipation of the council taking some action at some point in the future. And then my 3rd announcement is that we just today did receive a report from the structural engineer regarding the 2 staircases that are still closed. Those are the staircases on Scenic Road at 10th and at 12th. Unfortunately, the stringers on both, those are the big pieces of lumber that hold up the staircases, are split. It doesn't appear that either of them can be repaired. I will be back to you, council, with probably a request for an appropriation of funding. The stringer needs to be replaced, as well as a lot of the guardrail posts and the piers themselves. So again, when we get some more information, hopefully we'll be back in the next month or so to get funding, and then we need to have that probably professionally repaired. So those are my comments for now, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chip. I appreciate it. The council members, any thoughts?
I'll go.
Oh, sorry, Bobby. Why don't you go first?
Okay, well, I've been pretty occupied this month with my stuff, but I want to say happy birthday, Mayor White. That was a wonderful party the other day. And also congratulations to Carmel High for winning against Seaside, which is a tough team.
Well done. Karen.
Yes, you know, I serve on both the Regen Board and the AMBEG Board, but I also now serve on the Tor House Board, and I attended my first Tor House meeting, which was quite interesting. We do meet by Zoom because there are several people from out of the area. But I wanted to remind you that the Tor House tours take place on Saturdays, and they're really quite marvelous. It's a really wonderful asset to our community, and I hope that the Tor House will be making more announcements in the future through the city council meetings, because they really do have some marvelous programs that are available, but the Saturday tours are especially nice. So please avail yourself of those things. It's a wonderful tour. It's different with each docent that you go on, so you can go more than once. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else? Alessandra.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank everyone from the city, organizations and businesses that helped put on a surprise celebration for former Mayor Ken White's 90th birthday this past weekend. It was a really nice, fun event, and just wanted to say happy birthday, Ken. I see you out there.
Well done. Jeff.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that Brian Rosen was indeed correct. There is a big Coastal Commission meeting. You do not have to attend via Zoom. It's on Thursday at 9. You can attend in person because the Coastal Commission meeting is downtown in Monterey. You show up at 9 o'clock. I think you show up at 9 o'clock. You fill out a speaker slip, and when the surf project comes up, you can voice your opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to just report on my health. I'm going to get to my back. It's still bothering me a little bit, so I'm going to get up every half hour or so and move around a little bit so I don't freeze up. And also my hiatal acid reflux is not getting better. So it's still causing me to have a raspy voice, so I apologize for that. But I just want to know, if I start moving around a little bit, it's not because I'm getting bored or something like that. I just need to move around before my back seizes up on me. So thank you. All right, why don't we move on to the order of business, resolution 2024-077, adopting the community wildfire protection plan completed by the City of Monterey, City of Pacific Grove, and the City of Carmel-by-the-Sea. Chief. Welcome.
Should we lower the lights a little, maybe?
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, and thank you for this opportunity to present to you the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. Tonight, we're going to take some time just to do a review of the plan so you can kind of understand its components. Next, we're going to show you some of the great work that we've done already, as we've been waiting for you to get the plan signed. And lastly, we're going to ask you to sign off on the plan. It should be noted that the State of California, City of Monterey, City of Pacific Grove have all signed off on the plan. And once, if you should choose to sign off on the plan, that will make us very competitive for some federal and state grant money so we can continue to do the great work that we've already started. Tonight, to present the plan to you, it's going to be Captain J.D. Sheldon. He has vast experience in wildland firefighting, not only in Monterey County, but throughout the whole state of California. He's seen firsthand, and he's been on some of the most destructive wildfires in California's history. As we speak tonight, the City of Monterey has an engine out, an Office of Emergency Services engine out. It's probably our 5th time out this year. JD has a great passion for this. He's volunteered. He's been doing these presentations. We've already done one in Carmel. He'll probably discuss that tonight. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Captain J.D. Sheldon. Also used to work with Carmel Fire Department. So there you go.
Thanks, Jill. Appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. Familiar faces and some that I'm just meeting tonight. My name is J.D. Sheldon. I'm a 24-year firefighter with the City of Monterey. I started out with CRFA. Some of you might remember that was Carmel Regional Fire Ambulance. Now you have the Carmel Fire Ambulance. I started out as a firefighter on that rig for the first 3 years of my career. I have been a member of the community here my whole life. Born and raised PG kid, surfer here in Carmel, and then fortunate enough to be able to serve my community as a professional for the last 24 years. The reason that I got involved in the Community Wildfire Protection Plan really truly began in Santa Rosa. We got called at about midnight, and we were headed up to Santa Rosa for what was told to us was a wildfire. We were headed up there, and about 2/3 of the way up there, we got to the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, and the kids in the back seat on their phones, kids meeting the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds that were back there, said Santa Rosa's burning. And myself and Captain LaFontaine were in the front seat, and we're going, there's a fire burning into Santa Rosa, don't worry about it. And they go, no, the whole city's on fire. And we were supposed to go to Fire Station 7, which was a brand new fire station. They just completed about a year before. That was our meeting point. It burned down while we were en route. We were driving up Highway 101. We were the only vehicles on the road going north, and every lane going the other way was blocked with traffic trying to get out of Santa Rosa and head back into the city, which was their only escape route out of Santa Rosa. When we got to Santa Rosa, the whole town was indeed on fire. The only thing that we saw that we almost turned our mission from was the hospital had personal vehicles unloading guests and hospital patients into their own cars, and they were running for their lives. We fulfilled our duty for 72 hours. We fought fire. Our only order was from the incident command post, if it's on fire, don't put it out. If it's not on fire, try and keep it from catching on fire. And that was 72 hours with no support, just 5 engines, and we were fortunate enough, we hooked up with another group from San Francisco. So there were 10 engines on our place in Coffey Park, and we had no one up there for 3 days before all the resources started showing up. Thought that was the most overwhelming thing I'd ever seen in my life. Fast forward, December of that year, which this was October, December I went to Ventura, to the Thomas fire, and they said Ventura's on fire. And indeed it was. The whole backside of Ventura on the Ojai side was on fire as we came into town. And I was privileged enough to find out we were in the process of starting the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. I got the ability to work with the Dudek group out of Santa Barbara. We started it in 2022. Let's see if I can get this before we go. And they helped us develop a plan based on our needs as well as the needs of all other stakeholders in our group. So November 2022, we had community meetings, we had town hall meetings, we met with professionals, we met with jurisdictional partners, CAL FIRE, Monterey County Regional, Salinas Fire, we all got together, and in November 2023, we came up with the finalized plan. This plan is accessible on all the city websites, the Carmel City website, Monterey City website, and Pacific Grove website. The purpose of a CWPP is to give us a tool to help us reduce wildfire risk in our communities. We assess those risks, we identify potential areas for taking action, and then we identify priority projects that we can get busy on right off the bat. And that is based on the severity of the fuels in our areas. We use it as a policy-based directive because the bottom line of a CWPP is to access federal and state funds to help us do projects within our jurisdictional boundaries. So it's a policy-based directive based on federal rules and regulations, state rules and regulations, county rules and regulations, federal wildland regulations, and city ordinances. So it's quite a layer of things that you have to go through to start accessing these funds. We update it on a regular basis. We will probably do a biannual reassessment of this. We identify new projects and we show the progress that we have done. So in the CWPP, it's a 130-page document. It's a little complicated, but the basics of it are how we came up with our severity zones, which is the modeling methodology based on our topography, based on our fuels, based on our pre-inclement weather. We have community outreach. This is one of those. I'm talking to everybody here, the citizens as well as the council members. We worry about vegetation management. That's where Justin comes in. He's your forester. This is Justin Ono over here. We work on priority management projects, meaning our highest risk areas get our attention first. We have to worry about those planning and regulatory statutes when we go in and we mitigate these areas because it does mean cutting down foliage and wildland areas. And then we look for funding opportunities, which is the bottom line of this project. This is our plan area. This is the areas that the City of Monterey provides services to, Carmel-by-the-Sea, City of Pacific Grove, and the City of Monterey and the outlying boundary areas, as well as Sand City, La Mesa, and our federal facilities. These are color-coded fire risk areas. You can see Carmel-by-the-Sea has two areas of import. One is the Mission Trails Park, and the other is the Pescadero Canyon interface. We share the interface with CAL FIRE. We work together to work on that one, and then we have, as I'll talk in a little bit, we have a group of concerned citizens that help us take care of Mission Trails. So our priority management projects, we want to work interdepartmentally with the City of Carmel Public Works. Our priority maintenance along 2nd Avenue and the interface with Pebble Beach, Pescadero Canyon, we use goats and mitigation, felling, and mastication stuff on the bottom. We send correspondence to the vacant lot owners to make sure that they have clearance guidelines in their hands. And we have defensible space flyers that we go out. And right now we're going out and doing defensible space interactions with all of our citizens as we speak right now. Greg D'Ambrosia is our angel up at the Mission Trails Park. He and the Wheaties have broken that park into about 18, I believe, different sections, and they work on those together to make sure that we have it. And then on the outside, we work with CAL FIRE. We're going to do a shaded fuel break all around the outside of it. We're going to do shaded fuel breaks along the Pescadero Canyon also, and I talked to Justin last week. They've been doing a lot of work down on 2nd. We have perimeter management for all of our parks and parcels that the city owns in Carmel, and we're going to do stuff behind the Mission where we put equipment and all of our mitigated, masticated wildland stuff back there. There's a big pile of stuff back there. We also want to educate and assist our neighborhoods to make sure that they're NFPA fire-wise. This is a cooperative community-based project that the state has developed. And Firewise, you go in and you talk to your citizens and you help them come up with a plan for their own neighborhood. We go with defensible space inspectors who we have out in the areas right now that are out doing their job. We also do it as engine companies, so you might see us out there in your neighborhoods with our engines checking your property. We are going to develop chipper programs for people that are fire-wise, so it's a benefit for the fire-wise communities to get chipper programs. So you clear your yard, you throw it in front of your house, and then we'll take it away twice a year. And then we want to have defensible space and vacant lot ordinances, which we will be in the development of over the next couple of years. The reason we do this, safety is first and foremost. Prevention is what this is all about. And every dollar we spend on mitigating and taking care of these properties that surround us, we save millions in rebuild costs. We're maintaining healthier ecosystems for our wildlife and the open spaces, especially in Carmel. We're creating places for you to take your dogs out, go for walks every day, make sure that you're safe, make sure the trees are taken care of, and you get to enjoy. These are what we use. This is my favorite. I love the goats. If you've been into Pebble Beach and you've seen the herds of goats, it's just a lot of fun, but they're very, very effective at clearing properties. We use masticators, we chip, we tree fell, and in some cases, not in Carmel, we use live fire on the ground to get rid of seasonal fuels. This is a masticator on the left, and the backbone is our chipper on the right. These landscapes and open areas, we maintain them for environmental protection, but we also have to worry about cultural significance, especially in our area, having had native people here for about 4,000 years. So if we see something, we note it, we make sure that we don't disturb it, we notify the archaeological representatives and have them come and take care of it. Fire roads are for our safety and yours. It allows us and our mutual aid partners to get there quickly and mitigate a fire efficiently and safely. These are the guys that help us do everything. Tyson, Mike are in Monterey. We've got Albert over in Pacific Grove, and Justin is the man over here in Carmel. He does a great job. So if you guys have anything, you can contact me, Monterey.org, Sheldon at Monterey.org, or you can also contact Justin or anybody at Public Works. Thank you very much for your time. I know you guys have a lot on your plate tonight. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much, you guys.
Thank you. Well done. Any questions or comments by council members? Is anybody in the public wishing to speak to this item tonight?
Nancy Toomey with a question. Does any of the great work that you guys do help with homeowners insurance trauma?
So this is a question that comes up to me all the time. We're all in a place right now, if you have a home in a wildland interface, where your insurance company is really putting you to the burner. This helps. Firewise groups are showing the insurance companies that they actually care about their own properties. So Firewise is something that the Monterey Fire Safe Council is very good at helping with. This is a group of volunteers that work on the county level, but we work partnership hand in hand with them. So the Monterey Fire Safe Council, we can help you become Firewise. That's the only thing right now that may give us a leg up in this insurance issue. I can't say that I have an answer, but I will tell you this, that taking care of your own property will prevent things happening to your property that otherwise might affect your insurance, if that makes sense. If you want to keep your house from catching on fire, there's things we can do to help you do that.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, go ahead.
I'll go back there.
Will you be inspecting backyards or just front yards?
So with the defensible space inspection, we would love to get into your backyard and walk you through a mitigation plan for your property. One of the parts of that is we can't just walk on your property, but we're going to come up and we're going to knock on the front door and we're going to hope you're home. We're going to do a defensible space inspection no matter what. We can do it from the street. We can see if trees are overhanging your home, if they're too close to your chimney, if you have bushes that are lying down on the ground, which create what we call ladder fuels. We'll make recommendations and we'll leave you a flyer on your doorstep that say we came by. It'll give you a number if you're interested in having us come back. And if for some reason your home didn't pass the inspection, we're gonna come back in 1 month and try and make an appointment with you so that we can walk through your home and help you mitigate whatever the risks are that have with property. Does that make sense? Perfect. And
Yes, my question was, first of all, I really like this plan. I think it's long overdue, and I hope it never just goes on a shelf, that there is real intention behind it. And I think Firewise communities are something that our whole community almost needs a specific meeting some night to find out what it actually entails, because it's a lot of getting neighbors together and volunteers together to actually do it. Secondly, if you live with a neighbor who has lots of fire fuel in their yard, is that something you call the fire department
Certainly.
to talk about? Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to say is we do have a great partnership with Friends of Mission Trail Nature Preserve, which is near and dear to my heart. And just to let you know that we funded weed whacking in the entire Mission Trail this year and hemlock removal to the tune of almost $10,000.
Yep.
And we felt that was really important to get it done, and we did it. And we feel really good about being a partner with you with that fire fuel abatement program. But we could use a lot more help in our budgeting process in order to spend more time on that. And then what did you mean by shaded fuel
So
breaks?
a shaded fuel break is a preventative recommendation that from any street or edge or perimeter, shall we say, of a wildland area, we want to go in 50 to 60 feet if we can and clear out all what we call the ladder fuels. These are the perennial grasses and the bushes and stuff that can allow a small fire to catch onto something that may be 5 or 6 feet off the ground and then accelerate into the canopy of the trees. One of the things we have to worry about in Carmel, it's not going to be a fire from a hot Santa Ana day like they have in Southern California that comes out of Carmel Valley and heats everything up and the fire burns to the ocean. It's going to be very much the opposite. With Carmel, topography is going to drive a fire in Carmel. It's going to be something tantamount to a large home fire down at the bottom of one of our streets. And that home fire, if not mitigated quickly, can get into the canopy of the trees, which then can go all the way up to Highway 1. We had it happen in 1987 in Pebble Beach. So if any of you were here in 87, that was a big deal here locally. It was a challenge for the fire departments, it was a challenge for the citizens that lived here, and it was a deadly thing that happened right in our backyard. It's going to go from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill, and those are the things that we want to worry about. Justin and I are very aware of those things, and so we work on those things together. Your question about funding, if we get the CWPP signed, which I think is a simple decision, we will be able to access federal and state funds to help subsidize projects just like yours, and we'll work together to make sure those things happen.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think everyone in this town has been concerned about fire danger, and now you're going to be able to give us some better information of what to do about it. Please remind us, when is the next Carmel preparedness? I think
So
that's
I would
coming
believe
up.
I don't know the exact date, but we did one about 3 months ago. Do you know when it is?
November 16th at 10 a.m. at the Sunset Center. And we'll be talking about earthquakes and winter storm prep.
Perfect.
Yeah, the thing about those Carmel preparedness meetings is that we get CAL FIRE there, and it's very important that the community understands that we communicate and work with other agencies that come into our area if need be. And I think it's really important that we understand how you all coordinate and work together and who is in charge. And I think those preparedness seminars you've been doing have been very helpful, but it always bears repeating.
Yes. So we're going to be there with bells on. This is the last presentation of this particular PowerPoint. Now that everybody's seen it, I can change it and add in things that mean different things for different times. So earthquake and the storms are a big deal for us. We can't do anything without our partners on either side of us. So it's very important about our cooperative efforts, and we'll talk about that.
Well, thank you, and stay safe out there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Jeff.
I have a question. I have a question for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you, when you displayed the map of Carmel and Pacific Grove and Monterey, there's a big gaping hole in the middle that has to do with Pebble Beach.
That's correct.
So I live over on that side of town. So how do we deal with the risk of things coming over from Pebble Beach?
So Chief Nunez, and by requirement, they have a CWPP also. So CAL FIRE has a statewide plan. Chief Nunez's ranger unit has a specific plan just for Pebble Beach. It interfaces and interlocks with ours. So they have a plan, they have a mitigation schedule, and they have different parts of Pebble Beach. It's on a biannual update. So they're doing everything that we're doing exactly the same. That hole's only because I'm not in the CAL FIRE Ranger unit. My responsibility and Chief Miller's responsibility is our jurisdictional boundaries that we provide service to, but be confident that CAL FIRE is doing everything they can to protect anything on our boundaries.
And they do unincorporated Monterey, so up above where I live on the sort of northeast corner of town, there's unincorporated Monterey County that's not Pebble Beach.
Correct. That's the Cypress Fire District.
So they do that as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty. Hugo Ferrito looks like he has a question.
Hugo Ferrito, resident Carmel. I'm very gratified by this plan. I was walking on Mission and 8, and I saw a house completely surrounded by tall dry grass. I found out that's the Scout House. So maybe we should start taking a look at some of our inner houses in Carmel. Thank you.
Thank you for that neighborhood watch. Yes.
I have a question.
Certainly, could you come up to the mic and come up and get yourself on the mic?
Years ago, you used to go
All the way up. All the way up. Thank you.
This is my first one. First, years ago, you used to go around and check the hydrants. I haven't seen that happening. Do you check the hydrants?
So our partner in Cal-Am is, I'm just not trying to talk closely to you, but I'm talking to everybody here also. Cal-Am does 20% of their hydrants every single year. So what they do is they have a map where they go in, because there's so many hydrants, so their plan is 20% of their hydrants every year. So that's just a rotating thing. So yes, they are getting checked.
They are,
yes,
okay.
but it would probably be like every 5 years for...
Oh, really?
Right.
So, okay.
Yep.
So it just seemed more often to me before.
Yeah,
and if we have overhanging branches on our house, is there going to have to be a permit, $300 permit to get them removed? Yes. Pardon me? Yeah, 300, okay. Okay, thank you.
All righty, is there anybody else in the room? Is there anybody else in the room wishing to speak tonight before I go to Zoom? Brian Rosen on Zoom. Brian, you have your hand up. Is that left over from the previous testimony, or do you wish to speak to this side?
No, I'm here still. Want to speak.
Okay, good.
Okay, City Council. I remember going into Carmel. There was a man who was a spiritual healer down by Carmel, and I just remember those big eucalyptus trees being so full of divine energy, and they were so special and so amazing. And I guess these big giant eucalyptus trees are true climate fighters against climate change. They're just absolutely amazing. And you know, the more we keep polluting this world with all the junk we're doing everywhere, all the disposable society, all the production and waste and plastic and automobiles coming to our Carmel, for all the millions of tourists coming to the area, we're just going to keep on heating up the earth more and more, and it's going to mean we're going to have worse and worse fires, and we're going to have to clear out more and more. This wasn't that much of an issue back in early 80s, and people seemed to get along pretty well, but now the state is burning up, and we're not getting to the root of the problem. It's our lifestyle. It's ultimately, it probably all comes down to our thinking. We're not very good stewards of the earth, and we're not manifesting goodness in this world, and we're creating a lot of global warming and climate change and pollution. So I think the fire plan we need to clear things out, but you know, if you take out all the trees hanging over the houses, it's going to be major, and I don't even know if you can really make it safe without totally destroying Carmel. But you know, we need to like bring the train back and get emissions out of the air instead of just treating symptoms. We need to really get these cars off the road that are spewing out emissions everywhere. And there's just so many cars in the Carmel, named after the cars, it would seem. So I would really question taking out more eucalyptus trees. It almost seems like racism. They're wonderful beings. Just because they're non-native doesn't make them special. Maybe don't plant new ones. My ancestors weren't native either, and we're the biggest invasive species of them all, human beings. And so I would really encourage you to look a little deeper. Obviously, we have to protect against fires, and I applaud the fire people for doing so, but we need to bring the train back. So please work with all the city councils, Mr. Potter, who's on TAMSI, and Jeff Barron, who's on MST. Get those resolutions moving and get rid of the emissions into the air. You're gonna have to keep clearing more and more and more and more. And I don't know, there's no end in sight. So things can get worse and worse. And what's going to work today might not work 20 years from now, and you'll have to even thin it out even more. So let's look at the root of the problem, which, as I said, is probably our own
thinking. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate your testimony. Looks like Cindy Lloyd. Cindy, would you like to speak?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mayor Potter, members of the council, and city staff. I would like to share an experience that I had when I was a nursing supervisor at Community Hospital in 1987. Starting the afternoon shift, the hospital filled with smoke. I called the maintenance man, asked him what was going on. I then called the fire department, which was located near the hospital. I said, "What's happening?" And they said, "Oh, I'm so glad you called. There's a little grass fire down in Pebble Beach in the SFB Morse Preserve." And apparently it was started by a little fire that was unintentionally out of control. Well, at any rate, I was very much in contact with them, but also it wasn't long before the fire knocked out the Comcast. It knocked out our power. We went on generator power, but without Comcast, we had no outside communication. So I found a transistor radio. I went to my boss's office and found a map and realized the fire was heading to the hospital. So I called back down and they confirmed that. But I want you to know it was a big surprise to have a fire as big as that come and destroy as many houses as it did on a very hot and windy afternoon. But nothing happened at the hospital. Everything was fine. So that one experience taught me how quickly a fire can start from a little bit of grass to a great big conflagration. Secondly, I live in Carmel Woods on the edge of Pescadero Canyon, and the Pebble Beach Foundation has hired a company to come in and practically clear everything except trees from the surface of these hills and valleys. And it's quite astonishing to go out there and see the amount of work that has been done in order to protect this area from any fire. So those are just little random sharing with you, and thank you so much for being so concerned about Carmel and fire abatement. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Cindy. Is there anybody else in Zoom world wishing to speak? I don't see anybody over.
There's no more hands
Is there anybody
raised.
else in the room wishing to speak tonight? Is anybody? We'll bring it back to the council then. It is appropriate that we adopt a resolution in support of this action. So we need a motion to adopt resolution 2024-077, adopting the Community Wildfire Protection Plan completed for the city of Monterey, Pacific Grove and Carmel-by-the-Sea.
I'll make the motion.
Motion. We got a second. Okay, any other question?
So is...
I moved it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Barron?
Yes.
Councilmember Dramoff?
Yes.
Councilmember Ferlito?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Potter?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Good job, JD.
Hey, Bobby, I hope you feel better, bud.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right, the next item up is the presentation on the proposed street addresses. I'd like to go ahead and bring up a possible suggestion to council tonight. Hold on. Let me get some water. Perhaps we could focus our discussion a little bit more on what we want to do about a vote and what we're going to do about the public outreach process, instead of going ahead and having a whole debate about the whole process, whole project. I'm sorry, so what I'm talking about is if we could go ahead and have Brian, could you come up here for a minute, please? Brandon Swanson, could you come up for a minute? What I'd like to do is I'd like to get us to have a discussion about the process we're going to go through. So do we want to go to a public vote on this? And if so, what is the public outreach process going to look like? Instead of having a debate about the merits of it tonight. You understand what I'm talking about?
Certainly, yeah. So it sounds like, Mayor, perhaps what you're suggesting is foregoing the staff presentation to talk about the fire code and all that, and just if your council wants to, and the city attorney can talk about how this would work. But if the council wants to maybe address the discussion of putting this on a future ballot first, and rather than going through a presentation today, is that sort of what you're?
Well, I think in order to get to a presentation on the ballot, we're going to have to go ahead and have a lot of public input. We haven't had a lot of public input on this. We had a decision the other day that we were going to move forward. That's fine, but we wanted to figure out what the process is going to be to engage the public.
Yeah.
What is that going to look like?
Yeah. So I guess, Brian, I guess what the mayor's asking, maybe you can just say if this is something that we can do, and then the council can talk about it, is I guess the mayor's asking, can we forego the staff presentation on the research that's been done with the post office and street addresses and fire code, and can the council just go right to the conversation about do we want to put this on a future ballot measure, and then just direct staff, it sounds like, to do more outreach between now and then?
Sure. Yeah, I can follow that direction. It would be helpful if I advanced to slide under city options, if you can get to that slide. So while that's coming up, the staff report includes a discussion regarding the community engagement plan and the implementation plan. And then there's several sections that were included in the city attorney analysis. And I'm understanding from the mayor that he would like to have an initial discussion with respect to what the city's options are at this point. So this slide that you're seeing here mentions that one of the city's options is to adopt an ordinance, and that would include a motion to direct the city administrator to return to the council with an option, and a draft ordinance was included in the staff report as attachment 5. So that is one option.
Yeah, Dave, you had mentioned we were going to talk about the implementation plan and the city options. Can we talk about the implementation plan too, which I'm looking at the slide presentation, which are earlier, the public engagement phase and all of that stuff. So those are earlier slides.
My understanding was that, from what the mayor said, was he first wanted to get an understanding about what the public vote options were, and then talk about the implementation plan. But if
we're just going to do both.
Exactly, we're going to do both.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So one option, as I mentioned, is the ordinance. Okay. Let's go to the next slide. So another option, and this was directed by council at your last meeting, to return with a discussion regarding the opportunity legally to have the subject of it's called address identification in the codes, in the building codes. So if that was going to go to a public vote, 3 of the options are the ones that you see on this slide. The first one would be a voter initiative, and that is done through a petition process. And attached to the staff report was a copy of the various provisions of the elections code which govern a voter initiative. It involves a petition process that gets submitted to the city clerk, and then there's a verification of the signatures, and then that ordinance is then presented to the council. Through that process, I obviously provided a Reader's Digest version of it, but all the requirements are in the elections code. And then what happens is, if that voter initiative, which is typically presented in the form of an ordinance, if that is submitted to the city council has a choice under Elections Code 9215 to either adopt the ordinance without change or to submit the ordinance to the voters. I mentioned in the staff report, and I mentioned in this slide, that there is the legal issue of state preemption if the result of that ordinance would be to allow the city's current code to remain in effect. So that's the first option, would be having a voter initiative that would be presented to the council for action. The second option for a public vote would be a city council initiative. And in that circumstance, the city council has an ordinance prepared, and then that ordinance is submitted with a resolution to the county elections division, which would call for the election, would seek the assistance of the elections division to assist with the process, and then to schedule an election where the public would vote on that proposed ordinance. A third measure, ballot measure that is an option under the law, and I've not included a lot of citations here, but those are found in the staff report. But it's referred to as an advisory vote. An advisory vote is one where there often, what I see in my practice, is it's be a question that would be asked of the voters with respect to address identification. And then the voters would vote on it, and then the decision of the voters, the outcome of that vote, is not binding on the council. It's, as its name implies, advisory, so then the council can consider the vote on that advisory vote as to how they want to move forward on the matter. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so if there is a public vote through the process as I just described it, the question that would naturally come is, which election would that vote take place? So if you were going to have a special election on the initiative, that would be held, could be held in 2025. There's an elections code section, 1405, and under that subsection B of that code, the election would be set in a window. It would be between 88 days and 103 days after the order of election, and it must be held on a Tuesday. So if the council submitted a resolution to the county with the proposed ordinance, whether it's been submitted by the voters or on the council's initiative, and then the order comes from the county ordering the election, then the date for that election would be set between 88 and 103 days after the order of the election. All right, so that's if it were on an initiative. The third option, if you recall from my prior comment, was the advisory vote. And we checked, more specifically the city clerk checked, but I trust her on this one. She checked with the county elections division and was told that the election on an advisory vote, it could be set on two dates. One was March 4th of 2025, and the other was November 4th of 2025. So that's with the advisory vote. Now, if you didn't want to do the advisory vote or the initiative at a special election, they could. There is another choice, which is have the vote at a general election, and that would be a statewide election, and that would be in 2026. I should mention that based on the city clerk, again, getting information from the county on this, that the cost for additional cost to put it on the general election would be, I believe it was $8,000. Is that right, Nova?
Yeah, if we did it during a regular consolidated election in 2026, it would be about $8,000 on top of what we already pay for our general municipal election. Right,
and then if I recall, the cost for a special election would be between $39,000 and $59,000?
Yeah.
All right, so there's some variables that come into play that determine what the cost would be, but that's the estimate that we received, that Nova received from the county. So that is the summary of what your options are. Namely, you can adopt an ordinance to give direction and do that now, or if you wanted to go for a public vote, either a council initiative or a petition by the voters, and then it would go to an election on the dates that I've described here in my comments. Also on this slide, we mentioned what other city options were, and this to get to Councilmember Barron's comment, to provide direction to staff with regard to the public engagement plan and the implementation plan. And then the other possibility is other action that you may believe is appropriate that's different than what's described here in these slides. So that's the overview, and I'll be glad to respond to questions if there are any.
So just continuing my train of thought then is that the fact of the matter is that it's very complicated to go ahead and figure out tonight which one of these options we'd want to have without public input. We could take a lot of public testimony on this topic, and I think what we should do is go ahead and have a public workshop or a public council meeting, just a special council meeting to go ahead and deal with the one issue of what is the actual election going to be. Is it going to be special? Is it going to be general? Is it going to be, you know, which of these ones do we want to go with? I think that makes sense. So that's my thought. And then as far as the public engagement plan, go ahead and have a discussion during that time about what the language is going to be on the ballot. If what's it going to be, what are going to be the issues that we could do? Because we haven't had any public input really specifically to what we're talking about.
So, Mayor, if I can speak, to be clear, the first question right now is, do we want to put this to a ballot? Is that the number one question? And then the second question is, do we want to have a special or a general? Mm-hmm. Am I correct, Brian? Is that what you're asking us?
Yeah, perhaps we could put the slide back up. I think it's easier if we're visualizing it, and then go one prior. So to respond to your question, Mayor Pro Tem, you could approach this in a manner that you've described, which is to answer the question. Well, let's go back one slide, just for purposes. Okay, there could be an ordinance adopted. Now let's go to the next slide. If the council direction is to proceed with a public vote, which I believe is your first question, it would be, you could say, yes, we want to do that, and then you could have a discussion either now or later as to what the form for that would be. Okay. And then...
if you could stop right there, Brian, I'm sorry, so the first question could be, do we want to have it a public vote? And then a secondary question for maybe tonight, maybe not tonight, or later would be A, B, or C.
Bobby, I couldn't hear that.
A, B, or C.
So the first vote would be, do we want to have a public vote on this issue? If the answer is yes, then at a later time or even tonight, we could pick A, B, or C.
Okay, I have a question as far as timing. If we keep kicking the can down the road, we will run out of time to have an initiative that would come up, correct? Or can a vote come at any time?
The vote can come at any time on the initiative process, which are the first two here. Remember the window that I explained, which is that you have the order of election, and then the election date is going to be on a Tuesday, and it would need to be between 88 days and 103 days after the order of the election. So it could be on, depending upon your timing on, and I'm just picking this date, I don't even know if it's a Tuesday, but April 16th or May 10th. As long as it's on a Tuesday, and as long as it's more than 88 days and less than 103 days from the date of the order of the election. So that covers the initiative process, whether we're talking about the voter initiative or the council initiative. On the advisory vote, we've been informed by the county that would have to be on March 4th or on November 4th of 2025. And that's if you do the special election. If you do the general election and have the vote then it would either be in March or November of 2026.
Okay, so it's also my understanding that this would be a in-person vote, not a mail vote. Is that?
That's right. You cannot, because of your size of the city and your number of registered voters, you cannot do a mailed-in ballot. There has to be 1,000 or few voters I think that's the only time you've nodded on anything I've ever said, Mr. McWalter. So it would have to be between 88 and 103 days after the order of the election.
Okay, so do we understand what we're doing here?
No, I have some comments. The stuff that Mr. Pierrick is talking about is in the packet. Like there's a discussion of the difference between initiatives and referendums, or initiatives and advisory votes in the packet, and I think we should have that discussion tonight.
I'll just chime in, Mr. Mayor. I agree with your thought that this is complicated, and I would much rather see us have a special workshop or a special city council meeting that we can go into all of this and just focus on that. So I would support you on that.
My thought is that I'd go ahead and say we could have an advisory vote. We're going to put it to a public vote, but the matter whether it's going to be a voter initiative, whether it's going to be a council initiative, whether it's going to be an advisory vote, would be something we put down the road a day or two.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared. Like we've been at this for 2 years. I'm prepared to move forward tonight, regardless of what.
I am too. I think we have a room full of people who are very anxious to talk about this. We have done a lot of work. This has been on our agendas literally since 2021, and maybe even before that. And I think that any attempt to kick it down the road is just an attempt to stop anything from happening. So no, I am not in agreement with that, and I would think that a lot of our residents would not be in agreement with that. A city council initiative is something I would consider, but I would want this to happen sooner than later, and I think we could decide tonight if we were going to have a city council initiative. I don't think we need any more meetings about why it's good, why it isn't good. We know all the background behind it. We know the post office is not going to close. We know a lot of things, and I think we need to move on this. This is of importance to a lot of people who have physical and health issues, and also who want to be able to age safely in their own homes, knowing that they will be found. So I think that this is of voter importance, and that we should not continue to just kick it around.
So you're saying that we should not put this to a vote of the public?
No, I think if we decide, but we should decide tonight, and we should get it done, and we should perhaps do by the initiative. I'm not in favor of the advisory vote, because it's something that another council could say, well, we're not going to look at what the advisory vote came out. We don't like it. And I don't think that's fair to people. So I think if we're going to do this, we should have an initiative that people know what they're voting on, yes or no, and go forward with it.
So then the question would be, would it be March or would it be November?
We can probably get that done tonight.
Let me respond, if I could, to your question you just asked, Mayor. The March and November dates are tied to the advisory vote. You would be able to have a special election on the initiative option, either the voter initiative or the council initiative, any date that is more than 88 days and less than 103 days from the date of the order of the election. Now, I don't have my calendar out to start adding up all the days and such, but I can say that if we picked a date, let's just say, January 1st, and you count it out, and that's the date, well, I guess people are off on that date. So let's say on January 2nd that the order of the election went out, then you would count 88 days from January 2nd. That's going to give you a date. And then you would count 103 dates after January 2nd. Then the special election would be set in that window of 88 to 103 days. Whatever Tuesday would fall within that. And since that's like a 15-day span, I think there'd probably be a couple of Tuesdays there that would fall within. So to get to your question, Mayor, and I'm sorry, I'm a lawyer, so it takes me a long time to answer a question, but the process for the March and the November of 2025 dates are applied to the advisory vote, but the process for the vote on the initiative at that special election would be in that window of the 88 to 103 days.
But I don't think we're ready to craft the initiative tonight. Is that what we're saying? I think we need more time for that.
Yeah, but you could use the time during the public engagement phase, council member, to craft the ballot language, or after the public engagement.
With respect, I think that's our, I'm ready.
Can I speak?
Yes, Bobby.
Okay, because this is getting confusing on my end. And I just would like to know if we could possibly do something like this. Okay, I think this is an important enough issue for a lot of people on both sides that it should go on the ballot. Okay, so however we get there with all the initiatives and all the different things that Mr. Perrick stated, we have to deal with. But if we could put this to a vote of the public, and let's target November of 25, because March of 25 would be way too soon. This November of 26 would be far too long. And before we get the ballot language, we have workshops, and we talk about it, and just like we talked about before about community engagement. So that way we have a good measure put on a ballot in November of 25.
So if I could interrupt for just a moment. Mayor, my advice at this point would be, unless you have more questions for me, is that you allow public comment, because as everyone knows, the public is entitled to comment on any item, and I think that you should wait before you start to express a position about, with certainty, let's hold off on any motions or any decisions, listen to the public input, and then after public input, then you can speak among yourselves, deliberate, and provide the direction that you feel is appropriate.
Council.
Hold on 1 minute.
All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment then. Open it up to public comment to the issue of should it be put to the public? Will be put to the public.
Go ahead. Can we go back to...
Could you get up and come on forward to the mic?
Go.
Identify yourself.
Can we go back that slide? That legal issue of state preemption, if the result would be to allow the survey's current code to remain in effect. Can you say more about what that means? It sounds to me like we might shoot ourselves in the foot.
Well, we don't want to be doing that. I would say that the answer to your question is it's discussed in the staff report, but I moved right ahead to this slide, which was the options, and we can certainly talk about that further. But the legal rule here is that you cannot have an initiative that is in conflict with the state law, because the state law would preempt that ordinance.
So if we want to keep no addresses, that's our goal. We do not want to do a vote.
Well,
because otherwise the state will force addresses. Is that correct?
What my job is I can't give you legal advice because the city is my client. But what I can say,
maybe the city wants to know.
Well, hold on. I'm going to say more, but I can say to you that if the ordinance were to result in the city not having address identification, then there's a legal issue that I've identified, which is called preemption under state law. Okay. And I feel that it's my obligation to mention that to the council, of course, and to the public.
Well, I think we should just be really careful what we ask for.
All righty. So let's get public testimony then to the issue of putting this to a vote.
Please, no clapping. No clapping.
Yeah, no clapping. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I like it, thumbs up, thumbs down.
And Mayor, if I could, given the scope of the description in the agenda, my recommendation is that we allow the public to comment on any subject that they believe is appropriate given the scope of the agenda item. But understood. I understood what you said.
Yes.
I'm Mayor Potter and council members Michael McWalters, 2 northeast of 11th Scenic Road. First, I'd like to give a shout out to Nancy Toomey for authoring the No Addresses, No Problem, Mostly How-To Guide that's on the CRA website. This how-to guide provides many pointers on how to thrive today in our village with our 108-year tradition of not having standard addresses. My favorite pointer of Nancy's was for refrigerated pharmaceutical deliveries. Second, Mayor and council members, may I ask you for a show of hands, please, if you use the post office to get your mail? Please raise your hand. Okay, please note, no one raised their hand for the record. I ask because if 3 of you vote for street addresses, our post office is at risk of closing. 384 post office branches have closed since '22. While there are 1,024 branches nationwide, the Business Rescue Plan is looking to reduce that number to 600 because of the U.S. Postal Service debt of over $4.5 billion. I saw that Peninsula Messenger Service was on today's agenda. May I also ask for a show of hands if you use the Peninsula Messenger Service for your mail delivery? For the record, no hands were raised. Third, what was the catalyst for the urgency of imposing street addresses on our village now? Why wasn't a street address survey taken of the residents? A survey was taken of the pickleball courts. Why no street address survey? Councilmember Ferlito, you had 13 listening sessions for the housing element. Why did you not have any street address listening sessions? Regarding the 48-page street address staff report for today's meeting, there's no glossary. It would have been helpful to have a glossary because there are terms in these 48 pages that need defining. For example, in attachment 5, quote, the address identification provisions of the California Building Standards Code would apply to Carmel-by-the-Sea, unquote. So what are they? What are the California Building Standard Codes? In the City Council direction to the staff is the following, quote, approved address identification in the California Fire Code, California Resident Code, and the California Building Code are defined as acceptable to the fire code official, acceptable to the chief of the fire authority, or the building official of the city, and acceptable to the building official or enforcing agency, unquote. So what changed after 100 years of Carmel-by-the-Sea using directional addresses that now warrants imposing street addresses? If there were listening sessions, all of these questions would have already been answered before today's vote to overturn an over 100-year tradition. There's a lot of anger about this today because there was no transparency in the ad hoc committee. And on our side, the side that's for tradition and history and our culture, the side for maintaining the status quo was not represented. So in conclusion, please start over. And yes, I'm in favor of a vote. Thank you.
Mr. McWalters. Next speaker. No applause, no applause. No applause, please. Thumbs up, thumbs down. No, thank you. Appreciate that.
Good evening, Ken White. I want to read a motion that the Carmel Residents Association passed unanimously, and it reads as follows. If the City Council is going to pursue this, the Carmel Residents Association Board recommends multiple public meetings to educate and explore the pros and cons of all options with the potential issue of a public vote. And I'd like to ask the council, why don't we follow the same procedure you did with the paid parking? You had a couple of town meetings, you explained both sides, you had the whole thing issue, and both sides had a chance to talk. Then you hold your public vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Next speaker. Hey. Come on. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
So Nancy Toomey on behalf of being a resident, so I'm not wearing my board role. So important for me, and I think for everybody in the room, is we don't want our current model, which is in place until we choose to change it, we want them to be made whole as best as possible. And we believe that there are options to getting people to work within our current model, but there are also options in between where we are today, which has got some squirreliness to it, we get it, and a future opportunity that we're exploring for what is USPS standard addresses, depending on how you define that. But I wanted to just call out what I had sent in advance. Proceeding with a direction on any portion of this topic prior to community meeting is unacceptable. The city has not considered feedback from the community to explore alternatives to full implementation. The request and decision by the August City Council was to come back with information on what was involved in considering a public vote, which in part was covered here, although what was covered here included specific ordinances. And I don't think we're ready for a specific ordinance. So I would argue that yes, we should do a public vote, but we don't know what that ordinance should contain. And exploring the alternatives are a part of that. Our current city planning provides directional addresses today when a building permit is requested. So there is a standard directional address, like we have today, in the city planning department. And if everyone was to implement that, we could explore whether or not the standard directional address could work within the post office address management system. So I argue that we need to go through that step as a critical event prior to making a decision one way or the other on the standard addresses that we might have all had prior to moving to Carmel. So in completion of that thought, if and when any possible street addresses are a viable topic to consider, there remains too many questions unanswered, and there's too many implementation questions that are still not yet answered if we were to take that path. And I think the community meetings are the venue for us to explore all of those options. So thank you for consideration.
Thank you, Nancy. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Constance Irish Hess. I live on Torres Street, and I'm a 30-year full-time resident. I'm speaking in favor of addresses in Carmel. I'm not a newcomer who just wants to change things. I had a whole list of things that I wanted to go back through, but I'm not going to do that tonight. But I did want to address this gentleman's comment about the post office is going to close. This argument is being used as a scare tactic. Staff has already researched this, and the Postal Service has stated that having house numbers will not force us into home delivery. So this argument is moot. Now directing to the vote, if we put this to a vote, how are you going to write the initiative or ordinance without going against the state fire code? I think more research needs to be done on the legality of this. And it would also need to be very clear to the public that it would be against the state fire code to not have house numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Constance. Appreciate it. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Stacy Steele, and my husband and I together, we have lived in, owned, and voted in Carmel-by-the-Sea 1 square mile for 100 years, the two of us. We have 100 years here. We love how it is. We ask you please not to change it. I do want to say that with this council, I feel like every time I've stepped up here, which haven't been much in the past 2 years, but when I have, in the past 2 years, it's fallen to deaf ears for anything that I've suggested or said. And I know coming in here, I've heard from both Karen and Jeff, you want to vote tonight. People want to age gracefully, I heard you say. And I'm just curious, how have they aged the past 100 years? You know, to me, everyone seems to age gracefully here, and I don't think getting an address is going to change anything. That's all.
Thank you, Stacy. Next speaker.
Harvey Billy, resident of Carmel. I'd like to address something that hasn't been really studied here very well. That's it. The people that have had problems with this situation right now, and because of addresses, et cetera, have not received help. I talked to one council member here, Alessandra, and she's very much in favor of people being helped through the process. So in the short term, there's a period of time that needs to be spent to help deal with answering questions, setting up information for people who have specific problems. I believe many of those problems could probably be solved very easily, in fact, the vast majority. But that's not been proposed. That's not been put to faith. So you're just rushing the thing along by, so that's just another reason that this should be studied, and there should be, like was mentioned before, there were the thing on, on other issues have spent multiple meetings. For instance, paid parking has been studied. A lot of things have been studied, but this hasn't been studied at all out in the public sphere. And they were very remiss to be doing this, like you're doing it. Karen Felito, for her own personal reasons, maybe wanted to rush it through, but I think people need to pay attention here and realize we have endangered people here that are having real problems. Instead of just trying to use them as a prop to force an immediate quick vote, you need to sit back and say, we have personal people to worry about. So I wish that everybody that's having problems, and so many of which were recruited and told this is the only way to solve your problem, should actually receive help. So I'd like to stress that, and I think it's extremely important, so I hope you'll take that into account. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Billy. Next speaker. Thank you. Thumbs.
Carol Hall. I had a prepared speech, but I'm just going to speak from the cuff. My dog didn't come because she's very sick of meetings. I'm sure we can all relate to that. And I really think it's been an eye-opener to me to see how this topic has been bulldozed through to the point that it has already because of basically one or two people that have an agenda. And I resent that. I resent that we have not had a chance. We've not had workshops. Nancy has prepared a very nice approach to answering a lot of the concerns that people have expressed in regard to addresses and how to get their mail. I think we should be looking at all of that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I ask you to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Next speaker. Don't hesitate to come forward.
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Cole. I live on Carpenter Street, 2 southeast of 5th, and I encourage the City Council to pursue addresses for our community. Number one, I encourage you to be consistent with state law. We may not all like our state laws, but they're there for a reason, and state fire code and state building code is there to help protect us. I look at our community, we're in a very high fire hazard zone. We have an older population needing medical assistance probably more often than other communities just because of our age. In addition, we have some of the other carve-outs in state law are topographical, like maybe you're a really flat community, maybe there's not a reason to have an exemption. None of those issues exist here in our community, and I encourage us to adopt addresses so we're consistent with state law. The vulnerability for the first time that a fire truck or a police car can't find somebody that needs assistance, and we knew that we didn't comply with state law, is something that I just can't really support. So I encourage you to adopt addresses and to move that forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Appreciate it. Next speaker.
The clicker? Do you have the clicker? Or? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I'm Kevin Roos, Santa Fe and First. I want to talk about addresses and why we need them and why we should do this now. Addresses are facilitators. Hold on. Here we go. They make places easier to find. They make deliveries more reliable. They reduce time from when a caller dials 911 and when responders can provide aid. They help with the people who don't know the area, tourists, who are the backbone of our economy. In addressing such a system, we need to favor simplicity. Right now, you'll hear it. We have workarounds, and it's a great list that the CRA has put together. But the fact that workarounds exist is proof that the system doesn't work. So we need a simple solution, and why climb a big hill when we can climb a small one? Familiar addresses are best. Everybody expects addresses to be 123 Main Street. It's best to stick with the familiar. We need addresses that play well with others. This is critically important. You need an address that works with the address management system of the Postal Service. This is the system that almost all entities use to confirm that you have a usable address. If you're not an AMS, it's hard to prove where you are. It may be hard to prove that you exist.
The AMS rejects our directional addresses. We need a system that works seamlessly with the GIS used by 911 call centers, dispatchers, and responders. The current addresses do not work with these databases. Carmel already has some standard numbered addresses. This may be news to some of you. The lots shown in gray up here were not originally part of the city, but annexed later. Many of these, especially in the south and east, retain their addresses from when they were part of unincorporated Monterey County. So standard addresses won't be new in Carmel. We already have some. We're historically situated now. The no addresses tradition goes back a long way, but we live here today. Over time, we've implemented a lot of infrastructure. We now have running water and sewers. We have electric power. We have paved streets. How many of us would live here without this infrastructure? And addresses are infrastructure. So we need standard addresses because of when we live. So the thing about having good addresses is that everyone can find you. Emergency responders, delivery services, last mile contractors, et cetera, et cetera. And I want to point out again that the post office is not an issue. This is a scare tactic, as somebody else mentioned. The post office has confirmed that anything we do with addresses, one way or the other, will have no effect on any decisions they make regarding the post office. I also want to say that it's time to do this. This conversations have been going on a long time. It's not brand new. There's no need to delay on this. And I ask the City Council to act as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate your testimonies. Next speaker.
Linda Calafiore, resident. I live at 5 Southwest Mountain View, but if Comcast tries to find me, I'm at 10 Southwest Mountain View. And because I live on an angle street, some of us can't tell the difference between east and west. We have to look at the way the sun is setting. Many residents have begged and pleaded for our village to have assigned legal addresses for the health, safety, and convenience of everyday needs in life. We've gone over this. You've heard these people, whether it's the minority or the majority, they need to be heard. Our police captain supports the address effort. And most importantly, legal addresses are required by law by some financial and government institutions, as well as our fire department. You've heard these concerns at the last City Council meeting and many times before. I don't think we need to have more public hearings on what the problems are with not having addresses. Everyone in this room knows what the problems are, and I agree with the gentleman before that we're trying to have workarounds for a problem that we don't really need to have. Our residents deserve our attention and empathy. I would also venture to say it's immoral to dismiss these concerns. I will say that birthing wood rats in Mission Trail Nature Preserve seem to have more protections than we do in this regard. Those opposed to legal addresses say it is not our village character or that these so-called residents are new. Many who want legal addresses have years of residency, myself 20 years. You should not have to be born here to be considered part of our community. And what about our part-time residents? Where do they get to fit into the problems that they have? I was prepared tonight to talk about why we don't need a vote, that we should have a council that has the courage to make a decision about what's important for our community. Whether it's a vote or not a vote or how that's done, I don't care. I just think it's an issue that we need to address. As for village character, that issue was dismissed after beach fires were determined to negatively affect our residents, regardless of the impact of village character. Our needs, even if it's a minority, though I seem to think that it's the majority of our people, prefer addresses, and we need to act on how the best way to implement that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Next speaker.
Hi, Christy Ramers. First thing I wanted to just address to several people that stood up and said that legal addresses is needed for the fire code. What's needed for the fire code is an address identification, which they have lots of rules with it. It has to be 4 inches high on a contrasting against black against white, so it's really visible. It does not anywhere say that it needs to be an actual standard address. We have a lack of streetlights, our forest. We have our lack of streetlights, our forest, our rules about quiet, and our way of doing addresses as part of Carmel's unique character. And we look to you, our council, to preserve it above all else. When given a task to change something that is part of our character and tradition, because it butts up against a law that is bigger than us, like the California Fire Code, the council's first step must be to ask, how can we satisfy this law without sacrificing our tradition? This has not been done. The second step in any thought to change our traditions must be to involve the community through community meetings to ensure all members of our tiny town have the ability to ask questions, get answers, and share ideas. This was also not done. It's possible that we might have a win-win solution with addresses. People in town who want addresses can be freed of the headache of missed deliveries of their goods and services, and we can retain our traditional directional address system. This morning, I spoke with the USPS district manager who supervises our zip code 93921. It's clear that she's aware of the address discussion happening in our village, but she was never asked whether or not USPS could officially adopt our traditional directional address system. She encouraged me to submit the question in writing for USPS to consider, which I intend to do. There are plenty of instances across the country where USPS has adopted unusual address systems like ours. In the USPS publication 28, Appendix D, it discusses these. There's so much more to know about this that I would like to see this process slowed down to include some community meetings and more investigation done into using our directional addresses. This really could be a win-win if we could use the addresses to make us compliant and give folks an easier way to get their packages and utilities set up. Before throwing out our 100-year-old tradition and part of our Carmel's unique charm, I asked you, Mayor and City Council, holders of our past and future, to not make steps to change an ordinance written by our forefathers without doing everything you can to learn how you can avoid it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Next speaker.
Janice Schilling. This antiquated system is denying a single parent who has small children at home that cannot get to the grocery store. It is denying her the ability to have, since many grocery stores in the area will not deliver to the 93921 zip code. It is requiring the 90-year-old, perhaps after dark, to run out into the street to flag down a service provider who can't find the house. All it takes is a simple standard address to simplify our lives. Why go through 3 pages, as well as Nancy wrote this? Why take 3 pages when all it takes is one simple address? Why is it such a problem?
Thank you, appreciate it.
And the citizens of Carmel elected you each to represent them. You voted to have the staff look into this and propose an implementation plan, which we haven't even heard. What is this point?
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon again. I have insurance. Well, I just wanted to say that Ken White was right when he told the city council that if they allow the paving of Ocean, the town would not be as charming if they allowed it to be paved and not maintain dust and dirt. But that was just a little joke that you probably are tired anyway. But it seems to me that if we're going to ask the population of the city to determine what is legal and what we can't accept, maybe we should have a wish list. Maybe we should ask the state to allow us to remove the stop signs and maybe not pay a sales tax. Why not ask the city, why don't we have a wish list of things that we want the city to be relieved of? Folks, we need addresses. It's not like they're going to be carved. It's just addresses. It's just numbers on streets. Let's get serious. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo. Next speaker.
Andy Carr. I'd like to ask how many people in the audience or up here would like decisions made on their behalf without being fair, without everybody voting for what is going to be. I might have an opinion about something, but I will respect, if everybody votes, then I will respect whatever that decision is. I think it's very unfortunate that this topic of addresses has come to this the way it has come to this, because there haven't been meetings where, as people have said before me, that people could ask questions, that there were answers to the feasibility, how much it was going to cost, the people who have reason for addresses with medications to hear what their problems have been. I mean, we all need to be in this together to want to come to a solution that's going to work for everybody and not just a few people or some people. So I really appreciate hearing you say now that there should be more discussion, there should be public meetings, there should be voted on by the public. It's affecting all of us. And whatever the decision is, then we all have to get behind it and say that democracy has worked and this is what it is, and be good sports about it.
Thank you, Andy. Next speaker.
Good evening, I'm David O'Neill, and I just would be remiss if I didn't say something, because I've been talking to a lot of people around town, going door to door and stuff like that, and they would really like to have some more education, some more information, and they're much in favor of a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Laura Overett, and years ago, I too, thought we don't need addresses. We don't want to ruin the charm. But I have two very specific situations that happened with me that truly exemplify why we need them. My husband ended up with sepsis a few years ago and was totally delirious. He was in the bed. I certainly couldn't move him. I called 911 because he wasn't thinking straight. And they said, well, they had to send a team out from Carmel Valley, who's pretty much unfamiliar with our local addresses of San Antonio 2 northwest of 4th, which nobody ever finds because you can't see it from the street. So anyway, I had to run out our long driveway and wait up there for them to come. I had to leave my husband's bedside knowing that he could have just rolled out of bed, he could have tried to get up, it would have been devastating. Immediately, I thought, this is why we need addresses, it's safety. And the other one, I looked out my window one day at the house, I can see the front door of the house next door to us, and there was a package sitting there, and they're just part-time residents. I mean, there's only 2 full-time residents from 4th Avenue, or from San Antonio and 4th all the way to San Antonio and 2nd, 2 full-time residents. So I looked out and I saw a package sitting there. I went out to pick it up. It turned out it was for me, and it had been sitting there a week. It was flowers for my birthday, which was a week earlier. So between, that's when I went to the post office and I paid, so that the post office now will, if you pay $90 a year, they will accept all packages from UPS, FedEx, whatever. And I've done that ever since. I mean, they'll accept even giant bookcases, but then I have to find a way to take those bookcases back to my house. So if there were addresses, again, I think my 2 examples really exemplify why we need them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Albright. Appreciate it. Next speaker.
I think you guys have heard why I think we should have addresses. What I really wanted to talk about was the need for a vote, initiative, referendum, whatever. I'm relying on the staff report, frankly. I have not done the research myself, but if you look at section I, limitations on use of initiative and referendum, it says very clearly that one of the limitations is that the subject of the initiative and referendum cannot regulate matters preempted by state law. So I don't understand why anybody thinks we should have a vote. I do think we should have lots of discussions about the implementation, and those are all in the attachment number 2, draft implementation plan, which involves quite a few public meetings and discussion on a number of the different steps that would be involved, whatever address system we end up implementing. I think the point is people who want addresses want it to be part of the system that people can use through their computers, whether it's GPS, whether it's deliveries, whether it's medical deliveries, or getting a repairman to come, any of those things. It's just we want to be in the database, and we don't want to conflict with state law. I will just mention a personal thing, which I think I've said before, which is that in our particular case on Crespi Avenue, the neighbors don't agree what number we are. So that's, whatever system is implemented needs to deal with those kinds of conflicts. And I agree that, in my opinion, the simplest is just to have regular addresses. You use them or not, at least you have one. You still go to the post office. And I just don't think we need to go through the hoops of waiting for an election to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Maria Roos, and Mayor and council members and Chip, I want to ask you a simple question. We have been talking about this for 2 years. We have decided in the July meeting that we were going to give guidance to the staff to come prepare and present a plan for us to implement it, or at least an implementation plan draft. And Brian, you as the attorney, we're going to give advice on how to proceed with the 3 options that you presented. So what I would like to ask you is, sorry, let's do your job. The staff presented a plan. Let's look at the implementation plan. In that implementation plan, they clearly stated interactions with the public. So let's give them a chance to share that with us. Also, the fact that you want straight to decide on a vote, why don't you decide it? It was presented in the document that the city and Brian prepared. So your information is ahead of you. We've heard all the examples of health and safety issues. We've heard about, I've had a friend whose husband died in his house and could not be found, for God's sake. I think addresses are important. Those who choose not to have them, let them not have them. But if we can proceed with something as simple, that is a normal behavior we've all been accustomed to have addresses, let's do it. So I will ask you, and a plea to you and even our community, that let's stop being selfish. There's some people with a need of an address. Let's give it to them. And those who don't want them, skip them. Don't put them in your house. But please, let them present the implementation plan that they already gave us, because they have explained very clearly that they're going to interact with the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm going to assume that Parker Logan is going to be the last person to speak in here before I go to Zoom World. So if you're continuing to speak, please queue up behind
Parker
him.
Logan, City Council candidate. I'm a little confused. Are we talking about changing the name of Carmel-by-the-Sea to Conformityville? Are we just chipping away another thing? We got my squirrel pan on. Remember the squirrel cans? And the bonfires? And we do have some issues. I agree with you there. But maybe we can find ways that we can better get emergency services or things to these people who need them. We don't have to have numbered street addresses to do that. And we don't have to keep chipping away at Carmel-by-the-Sea before we are Conformityville. And I know you just kind of brought this up, and a lot of people learned about this maybe just a few weeks ago. Just a reminder, no one likes a teacher's pet. Things were going well. If there's issues with people, we should fix those. Like a lot of people have decided, but a one-size-fits-all, everybody has to have addresses now, is not going to be the way to move things forward, to preserve the fabric of our community, the village, not the authoritarian city that it seems like some of these people want to turn this into. There's lots of technology and lots of ways to get people their medication, their medical services, their emergency services They're packages. It's not that hard. We've been doing it 100 years. My parents live in Pebble Beach. They have addresses, and at least once a year, one of their packages ends up across the street. So that's not going to guarantee you're going to get your flowers on your birthday. But there's other ways that we can do this without causing all this rigmarole, all these meetings. Now it's going to go on even further because we should have discussions that you didn't have in the beginning that you should have implemented and asked us to come do like you do on other really important issues. Did you not think this was important? Or you just thought it was super important for the few people that you know that want to have this done, including yourself? Seems self-serving to me. So let's serve the community and let them decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Carrie White. I heard a comment about how we need to stop kicking this can down the road, and frankly, I feel like there's an empty can that we're kicking. What is in this can? I mean, where are the meetings, right? Where's the information? One of the things that I have come to find out from attorneys is that the California Fire Code does not preclude directional addresses, which means they're not illegal. I haven't heard anybody talking about that. The law is not as simple as what we're hearing, and I think if it were illegal, every single one of us would be in prison. I mean, this has been going on for 108 years. So I think we need to figure out, are we really talking about the fire code, or are we talking about Amazon packages? For me, I think the fire code is an excuse for what people really want. And if you have a home that's hard to find, or you like to have stuff delivered to you, if you don't have a directional address in your garden or on your driveway, how do you expect anybody to find you? I mean, seriously, if you have a number on your house and it's hidden, what good is that going to do? So I think we need time to talk about this, all of it. In November of 2022, 1,956 people voted in the November 8th election. If those of us who have, banks, insurance companies, passports, driver's license, trust wills, everything that's tied to an address, I did an average. The average person has 20. That means 1,956 people have to change 20 things. That's 39,000 changes for a home address. That's why this belongs to the people. This is not a vote for 3 people. This is a vote for all of us because it impacts everybody. So I think when you guys think about this, you need to realize what you're doing. This is not for a few people to decide, because this is a township issue. And I would just like to see some meetings and some educations and some transparency and a full disclosure of what the fire code really means. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on, no.
Okay. Dale Byrne. I have a question, a comment first. Earlier this year, I think twice, the decision was made to spend $40,000 on the preliminary design for a pergola at Sunset Center. And only to find out at the budget meeting, somebody finally said, how much is it going to cost for the pergola to be built? And it turned out it was something like $400,000, at which point the project was killed. So maybe we should do the same thing here and find out, first of all, how much is this going to cost? I haven't heard that yet. Maybe I missed it. Is this going to be $500,000? Do we have to replace all the street signs? Do we have to put new street signs up? So just practical considerations. This might cost a lot of money that we don't have to do this. Second, how long is it going to take? Because while it's happening, we're going to be in a confused state, and it could be even worse than the situation we have now. And I'm not saying one way or the other. It's just we should consider it. And the impact on everybody was just heard, because it could cause us to have to do a lot of things. So let's find out how much this is going to cost so we can get it in the budget before we actually try to execute this. And I'm not sure I actually saw an implementation plan in the document. I might have missed it, but it didn't seem like the practical kinds of things, including what I just said. I think it would be good to see that before we get further down the path. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Next speaker.
Hi, JT Thomas. I'm in the back of the room listening to this, and I sympathize with all the folks that have problems with various health issues and close to deaths and whatnot. But when I moved here... Can you talk in the microphone, please? Sure. when I moved here, every house I see it says like, I'm 4 northwest of 3rd Avenue. Isn't that an address? Yes. So I don't understand. I don't understand what the problem is. Everybody that wants people to find them, they put it on their house. That's all I've said.
Thank you, JT. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else in the room wishing to speak tonight? I'm going to go to Zoom then. So in Zoom we have Linda Marie Linda Marie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. The issue of addresses should go to the vote of the people. This has been a 108-year tradition worth preserving. And no one here in Carmel can speak for the United States Post Office as to say whether or not our post office will close. Our city council seems to be ignoring its citizens. This is the 3rd time I have spoken at meetings. This is just wrong. There have been no public gatherings. We need to vote. You are not listening to those of us who elected you to office. We need to vote. Let it be known that candidates vying for office as new council members and mayor are actively listening to all of us. We need to vote. This is a township.